Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Dr. Mom Show. It's Dr. D, mom of three. I am so excited because today we are starting off our brand new season that is all about moms. Whoop, whoop. Can I get a whoop, whoop for my moms? And we have a super special guest today, Miss Dana Williams. So I'm so excited to jump into the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I am just delighted to be here and excited about what we're going to talk about.
Our focus is on mama. So if you know a mom, a grandma, auntie, a godmother, definitely share this with them. And before we get into it today, don't forget to check me out on www.delenemushalak.com. There's super exciting things going on. I had my first book collaboration, Women of War, Peace in the Midst of the Storm. Don't forget to pick up your copy of that book. You can grab that from Amazon or my website. And then, of course, my mom devotional, MOM, Meditate, Overcome, Motivate, a 30-day devotional, especially for moms, but also good for women in general, just to challenge you daily to remember the promises of God and what He's promised us, that we are beautiful, we are strong, we are amazing. Sometimes we forget that we're all those things. And then finally, of course, my favorite, The Tripsies and Me. Don't forget to grab that. That's available by ebook and hard copy on Amazon. Whoop, whoop. So Today I have a super special guest. Her name is Dana Williams. Yay! Give it up for Dana. Dana's amazing. She is going to tell you a little bit more about herself, but she hosts a show called Table 112. And I really do want her to tell you the background. When she told me the backstory to how she got that name, I just thought it was great. And it's just nice how titles usually mean things and have a personal aspect to it, and everybody may not necessarily know, but I thought her story was very nice. So I'm going to give it over to Dana so she can tell us a little bit more about herself, what she does, and her family.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Hi, everybody. I'm Dana Williams, and I lead an organization called Table 112. And that the 112 is the thing that usually trips everybody up. People can understand being invited to the table for conversations and things like that. But the 112 comes from a season in my life where I was actually kind of wandering from God, and I worked at Chevron. And on the first day, they handed me a radio and they said, "Your number is 112. Well, I grew up in a home with a law enforcement officer as my stepfather. And so that was background noise to me. I didn't hear it. It took me a while to tune in and realize when they were talking to me. And I think there's some parallels there in my spiritual life of like, sometimes I need to tune in and realize that God is trying to communicate with me and God has a message for me. And so that made that number really special to me. And it came to mean like little notices during the day that God was saying, "Hey, I love you. I've got your back." And so I'd see it pop up on mile marker signs and on the clock all the time. And, somebody would hand you the table card for going to the table and you have the number 112 on the card. It was just like these little reminders everywhere for me. And then I guess last year, the year before, I was going through a program to work on my calendar, and I knew that I needed 8 hours of sleep. And so I started with that. I was like, what am I going to do with the rest of the time? And when I subtracted 8 hours of sleep every night, I realized there's 112 hours left in the week. And it just struck me. I was like, those are the hours that we choose who we are. And I think that there's so many important truths in there for parenting, because who we are is the thing that kind of gets imprinted on our kids. So there you go. Table 112. It also goes along with Psalm 112, which talks about passing on our faith to the next generation, and Romans 112, which talks about getting together and mutually encouraging each other. So that's a big, long backstory to 112, but it's a significant number in my world. So
I love it. And ironically enough, today, Dana will be talking about how to be your best self with better rest. So she brought up, she went and kind of went backwards and calculated, hey, I need X amount of sleep, so 8 hours a day. She's such a good person. And then calculated how many hours she had to work. So before we delve into that, tell us a little bit about your family.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she forgot about that. She said 112 is a baby.
I got so focused on the 112 thing because you did ask me about that. So my family, I am married to Jeremy. We celebrated 21 years in May.
Woo
My
woo!
Yes, thank you. My son is 19, so he graduated in 2019, so he wasn't part of this 2020 class. And then my daughter is 13. So I've got two teenagers on bookends, one at the end of being a teenager and one at the very beginning of being a teenager. And as I said, I lead an organization called Table 112, where our mission is just to inspire every parent. I have a background in family ministries. So I've worked in student ministries, kid ministries, and then overseeing all of that. And through that season, I just developed a big heart for instilling hope and inspiration into the parents because they are the biggest influencers of the next generation. So that's what I'm on a mission to do.
I love it. I love it. I mean, she's so great. If you listen to her show, we'll tell you a little bit more about that, how you can check it out and connect with her at the end of the show. But just good tips. Well, we're going to go right into it and tell you today how you can be your best with better rest. So, Dana, I'm going to start off with, first of all, you're a mompreneur, you're an entrepreneur, you're a mother. So if you haven't heard that term yet, that's a mompreneur. Now you know, now you're cool out there for you viewers who didn't know. So what do you feel are the advantages and disadvantages of being a stay-at-home mompreneur?
Yeah, I love that I'm available. I also find that being available can be a challenge. So it's kind of a both and. It's great to be able to be there for the moments, and especially like this spring when everything shut down. I was already here. Like we didn't have to worry about that kind of stuff. But the other problem is you always seem available. And sometimes you need to be able to go and get your work done. And so so there is that tension of trying to manage like when I'm on the clock and when I'm off the clock, and having that work-life balance can be a struggle. Another thing that I love about being a mompreneur is that it's so flexible. I can work from anywhere. You know, I am looking forward to a vacation with my family. But in the midst of that, I'm supposed to lead a group of children's pastors as we talk about getting back into the new normal for church. And I'm going to be able to do that with a Wi-Fi connection. And so I love that I don't necessarily have to be tied to an office to do that. And it's going to be 1 hour and then I'll be back enjoying some trails and stuff like that with my family. But I do miss the social aspect of being in an office. So that's been hard for me, especially this year. Just seeing people on the daily, or, you know, getting in those in-person meetings together. And so that especially during COVID has been a big challenge for me. But yeah, I like in normal seasons to be able to go out and work at a coffee shop or something like that, where I am really energized by being around people. So I have to be careful with that for myself. So
yes, I love those tips. And it is true that it is more flexible, but sometimes can be a little bit more demanding, because usually when you see moms there, you know, if it's between mom and dad, usually the kids are saying mom. So
usually, yeah.
So if there was one thing that you could change about your family situation right now, what would that be?
I feel like my answer is everyone's answer to this question. It's like, I would get rid of COVID-19 because it feels like it's strips so much from our lives, the things that we enjoy, the ways that we cope with the hard stuff. You know, I love to be able to get together with my girlfriends, and I feel very limited. Like the canvas that I can paint on is much smaller now. And so I'm trying to find other ways to piece together some of those things that work for me. And so, you know, and I see my kids being disappointed by things that they're not able to do right now. And so for us, like if I could just do one, it would be get rid of this virus so that we could get back to enjoying our people and going and exploring this amazing world that we're in. So yeah, that's the thing I'm missing the most right now.
Yeah, so true. And I think I agree with you that I feel everybody's probably on that page, that if anybody could say, hey, with a snap of the finger and just kind of get things back at least somewhat close to normal, everybody I think would be super happy with that.
Yeah. It's so hard to find an area of life that it hasn't touched, you know? And I think we're just kind of tired of it.
Yeah. And it's just day by day. You just got to take it day by day.
Absolutely.
Well, good. Well, as a busy mom, you're obviously busy because you have your show, you have your family. Now with COVID-19, your kids are older, and I mean, obviously homeschooling, and you have your husband. Of course, you can't not give attention to your husband.
Right.
How do you fit everything into one day that you need to get done? And can you give some moms some tips on what they can do to get what they need to get done in their daily schedule?
Yeah. So one of the things is I don't try to do everything in one day. I will assign certain things to certain days. So for example, I've designated Thursdays as meeting days. And if at all possible, I try to schedule meetings on Thursdays. And I may be in back-to-back meetings like 5 times in a row, but that gives me the space because I am a content creator, I'm a communicator, and so it gives me those blocks of time where I can go a little bit deeper and dive into a project a little bit longer if I'm not getting interrupted by meetings. And so I actually on my schedule block this time I'm going to do this and this time I'm going to do that, and I make those appointments with myself throughout the day. That's how we got to that 112 hours, was me creating this system so that I would know, here's what I do on Mondays, here's what I do on Tuesdays. And so right now those hours are just business hours that I have blocked, but because of COVID-19, things in the outside of that have really slowed down. So, I have other routines where, I know my routine in the morning. I'm going to get up, I'm going to drink a cup of coffee and spend some time with the Lord. And then I'm going to have some breakfast and get ready for the day. And then in the evenings, we've been going for a bike ride together in the neighborhood, my husband and I. And so just kind of like, I guess it's kind of routine, but it's not necessarily a daily routine. It's backing up and looking at the whole week and making sure that you put the most important things in first and then let the other stuff kind of fall away. So the other thing that's been really helpful is setting clear expectations with my family. Now, I don't know what your family situation is as you're listening to this, but my kids are older, and there came a point this spring where I was like, okay, we are both working full-time from home, which is normal for us, except my husband's a contractor, so he's out. He usually was out during the day, but now he does everything at home. And so we're working full-time. And then the end of the day, the kids are looking at us and they're like, what's for dinner? And the kitchen is full of dirty dishes. And I'm like, this has to stop. So I set some clear expectations. I said, we're going to take turns doing this. And I made a rotation. So, in our family, you're going to do the clean dishes one day. You're going to do the dirty dishes the next day. You're going to cook the next day. And then you'll have the 4th day off because we have 4 people. So that's great. It works out pretty well. We rotate through week after week. And I wrote it down. I put it up so that people would be able to look and see, here's your expectation for the day. And I got to tell you, like, even just clearly saying we're going to do this has really saved my sanity to be able to go, let's take turns so that all the responsibility isn't falling to just 1 or 2 people. So being clear with that. And then I've expanded it more recently into other household chores, much to everyone's dismay. But it's been helpful because things that were getting neglected are getting done on a more consistent basis. So it's weird when you're here and you're working. You need to carve out the time to do that, and like setting expectations that we're going to share the load really has helped a lot. And then, as we've alluded to, we're going to talk about rest. Prioritizing rest has been a game changer in my life. It helps me keep going. It helps me put myself in the right mindset about who I am and what I'm able to accomplish and what I'm not able to accomplish. And so, I'm not going to speak from your side, but from what I understand, doctors will tell you all the good things that 8 hours of sleep will do for you and all the harmful things that happen to you if you don't get 8 hours of sleep. When I heard that list, it scared me to death. I was like, I don't want any of that. So I started trying to prioritize that. And I don't always get it, but I do look on my phone to see kind of the tracking, like, how am I doing? Am I trending down? Like, I'm only getting 6.5 hours this week, or I'm trending to more where I want to be. So I try to gauge that and then make the adjustments that I need to make. So.
Yeah, I love it. And I mean, you partially answered my next question, but just to backtrack, I mean, Dana gave some really good points about, schedule blocking. I think it's really important to make it intentional. So it's something she obviously intentionally does her schedule. So she knows what times, like she said, do what needs to be prioritized, put that, and everything kind of falls into place on the extra times that are on your schedule. Setting clear expectations and delegating, I think, as moms, and even more so mompreneurs, we're used to kind of doing everything. I have to say, because you're the boss.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of times we have a mindset of, if I don't do it, it's not going to get done right. And I think that's one thing as a mother and as an entrepreneur, sometimes we have to let that go. You have to let other members of your family help you out. You have to let other people in your business or partners, whoever it may be, help you out, because then it will become too much for you. So in both aspects, what she's telling you about the schedule and blocking, setting clear expectations, delegating, is very, very important. And you answered some of my next question about why is rest so important as a mother and as an entrepreneur. And you mentioned, what were some of the things that you read? Because now I'm curious.
Oh, about sleeping?
Yeah.
My goodness, I'm not even sure I can remember. I just remember that it impacted your health. Like you were more likely to gain weight, and you were more likely to have diminished cognitive abilities and things like that. It was just like all this list of things that
Yes.
don't make you perform your best.
Yeah,
And
so it's so true because research has shown when we sleep, that's when things go into our long-term memory. So that's why when students study, we really try to discourage them from cramming. I mean, because I've been there in medical school where you're staying up all night and you're like studying for your test the next day. And I'm sure all of us have been there. But long-term wise, what you're studying and reading doesn't get turned into your long-term memory like we really wanted to. When we're studying for something, especially something that we will utilize long-term, we're really doing ourselves a disservice by staying up late and not getting. So you're so right about that. The same thing as far as sleeping in your body, because that's really when our brain gets rest. That's when our cells get rest. In reality, during the night, when we have a patient who has high cholesterol, we give them cholesterol medication. It's been found that the cells break down cholesterol best at night when your body is at rest. So we tell patients to take their cholesterol medication in the evening. So then they optimize when they take their medicine. And then also, I mean, there's been research about like lines, wrinkles, things like that, your skin, the health of your skin with rest. So you're right. So it is very, very important. And I told Dana this story just this week. It's been very busy recently and I've been staying up late, definitely not getting enough sleep. And earlier this week, I was having like vision changes. I ended up having a really bad migraine. And, even during the day, I was functioning okay. One thing is your body will tell you when it's tired that you may not necessarily feel tired. Like I wasn't tired, but my brain was just like, you're done with this. Like, no,
absolutely,
no more of this. So, definitely listen to your body if something happens or you're feeling a certain way. And like Dana encouraged, and she even said, honestly, there will be nights where you're up late, or if you have younger kids and they wake up or they're sick, we know there's all situations like that. Or if you have a project that you have to stay up and work on, we know that happens. But overall, you should try to get anywhere from 7 to 8 hours a night in order for your body to get that rest. And it's not your physical body, it's really your brain, because what happens is you may think, again, I wasn't feeling tired, and it's because my body was fine, but my brain was going off of 4 hours of sleep or whatever the case may be. So when you're missing sleep, it's really your brain function that unfortunately is paying the toll. That's why, especially people who work overnight shifts, we say like, watch out, because, when they're driving, because sometimes you can't even think. I remember when I was in residency, after like 24-hour shifts, you're like, oh my gosh, like you, you just can't even, because you're so sleep deprived. And they do it in conjunction. They compare it to being intoxicated with alcohol when you have missed that much sleep. So that just kind of shows you that it's equivalent when you have not slept well to being intoxicated with alcohol. So Dana, she hit it on the spot that it is very, very important.
What you were saying reminded me of something. I've spent some years in therapy, and one of the things that that I learned along the way was how when we sleep, our brain sorts the events of the day and how it takes them and it puts them into our long-term memory. And if we're not sleeping, we're not giving our brain a chance to process the hard stuff that we're going through. And I just think that's so fascinating to make sure that we're getting enough rest, so that, especially in a season like this where we're just going through so many things and it's kind of a collective trauma, if you will, like we need that sleep to get those thoughts processed and put away in the right file folder, if you will. And 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 it's so interesting because I spoke with her, I don't know, a month or two ago, and she said so many of her patients are coming to her with sleep issues. So I think it's a really important time to prioritize that. Now, rest isn't only about sleep, but it is a big piece of it.
Yes. And she's so true. When you said that, and I'll probably have you touch on that a little bit. And I'm, if you've heard me speak before, I always talk about me time, quote unquote, me time, and making time, even with your family, to have every family member also have me time, where everybody gets a chance to do something they love, whether it's, you know, yoga, exercising, running, reading a book, listening to music, laying in bed, but really, you know, just time away from like screen time, you know, for me, like reading a medical journal, like, you know, read something else that may not even make sense, you know, but something, you know, something that's just fun and you don't have to think about essentially. You're so right about that.
Yeah.
About that it's not only about sleep, it's also just giving yourself a break. Because I mean, I'm guilty of it, missing lunch. You know, you're working and you may still be seeing patients, or sometimes I'm sure Dana may get caught up with her stuff. She talked about multiple meetings. You know, sometimes you go meeting after meeting after meeting, and I'm sure you don't get a chance to eat. You don't realize it's like 2 o'clock, way past lunchtime, and your stomach's grumbling. Because
Happened yesterday.
Because they have studies about that too, that when you eat, how working and eating just affects your metabolism, everything, that you need to take time, even if it's 10 or 15 minutes to eat. And that's all you do. So you can give your brain time to rest and just kind of like calm down a little bit, you know, if it's in the middle of the day. So very, very important. So with that being said, do you have, like how I had my negative experience this week, where there was a time where you didn't get the rest you needed? You just kept going, and then your body was like, no.
Yeah, my mind goes to a summer when I was leading the family ministries at my church, and that summer the lineup was something similar to VBS. It wasn't exactly VBS, Vacation Bible School, for those who don't know the lingo, and then 2 camps out of town, far away, with many kids, dozens of kids, and then I was leading an international mission trip. I had 2 brand new employees that I was learning how to manage, and we had an office move, so we were changing things around. Everybody was getting a new space, including the storage room for all the kids' ministry supplies, which if you've ever been in one of those, you know it's kind of a nightmare. Plus regular weekly program on Sundays, and I guess not Wednesdays, but yeah, it was a heavy load, and I found myself exhausted and coming home and not having anything left to give in my family. And it was really hurting my relationships. And I know, because I know a lot about my personality, that when I get to that place of feeling like I'm just pouring from an empty cup, I will withdraw and I will get kind of lazy. Like, I'm not a lazy person by nature, but I will binge watch TV shows. I don't normally do that, but that's a signal for me that something's going on. So learning your own signals for when you are lacking rest. And I was craving the deeper relationships. I was so busy doing this stuff that I really wasn't having not only that relationship with my family, but those deep relationships with my friends, because I just didn't have the time or the space to make time for it. So it was a detrimental season. And I will say that I found myself in a space of just feeling really down and having a hard time kind of climbing back out of that pit. So
Yeah. And I think, go ahead.
You can only go on like that for so long.
Yeah. And that's so true. And I think, again, just going back to, I feel as moms and entrepreneurs, I think we have very strong personalities, and a lot of times we're under the impression that, you know, you have to keep going. You have to keep, you know, putting on that smile and that facade that, like, I can do this, I'm strong. But, you know, it's okay. We're all only human at the end of the day. No matter who you're talking about, you can talk about the multi-billionaire entrepreneur to the person on the corner of the street. We all need the same amount of rest. So that is very, very important. So tell us, with that being said, how we've talked about rest being so important, how can busy moms fit rest? And like we talked about, that's including sleep and just a little bit of me time into their packed schedules.
Yeah, the first thing that I would say about that is you've got to be a friend to yourself. And that might sound silly, but we treat our friends in a way that we don't necessarily always treat ourselves. We're sometimes kinder to our friends than we are to ourselves. And I think that we need to make sure that we're treating ourselves as if we are our own friend. I love this quote by Abraham Lincoln, and I have it on a sticky note over here. So I'm going to read it to you because it's a little bit lengthy, but I loved what he said. He said, "I desire so to conduct the affairs of this administration that if at the end I have lost everything, or every other friend on earth, I shall have at least one friend left, and that friend shall be down inside of me." Mm-hmm. I just love that thought that no matter what happens, if everybody else walked away, that he would show himself kindness and that he would conduct himself with integrity. And so I think that when we think about rest, we need to take care of ourselves so that we can be the humans that we want to be to ourselves. So be a friend to yourself would be the first thing I'd say about that. Second is ask for help. You know, if you don't have older kids, you can ask a spouse, you can ask a friend, swap turns, getting, a Saturday off or something like that. But make your needs clear and known. And that is okay. That's not a sign of weakness.
That's right.
We seem to have this idea that mom has to do everything, but I think that that's incorrect. And it actually does our kids, as our kids get older, it does them a disservice because eventually they're going to have to be the ones figuring out how to do it. And so, I told you about sharing the load with meals, and I had one of my children, I give them the recipe, opened up the recipe and said, "I can't do this." I said, "I think you can do this." And so I kind of stepped back and I cheered for this child and I coached them through it. But at the end, like, this meal was incredible. It was delicious. Awesome. And my child learned a skill of like following a recipe and slowing down and taking the time. But like, I needed to not back down and keep the promise to myself that I would ask for that help. And then I would expect that help to come through for me. And then the last thing is, we do need to make that appointment with ourselves and keep it. For me, I always try to take Saturdays to just not create. I'm a creator. I create podcasts. I'm creating videos. I'm creating content daily. And so Saturdays, that's the thing that I don't do. I don't make stuff. And so that's kind of my filter for what I do or don't do on Saturdays. Now, that's not always true. One day we built some chairs on the back patio, but I wasn't creating stuff on my computer. And so there was a little bit
family creation project.
Exactly. So yeah, just making that appointment with yourself and then holding it as if you're a friend.
Yes.
So we wouldn't want to let our friends down. So I think we need to, even if you can squeeze in an hour or 2 hours or wherever you need to begin, for me, it's gotten up to, I need a whole day. And there's a lot in that of just like, why do you need that space? Well, I think it teaches us a lot about who God is. So
yeah. No, those are great tips. So again, be a friend to yourself, ask for help, and make that appointment with yourself and keep it. And you're so right. We have a tendency to, I always say, put ourselves on the back burners, our goals, our dreams. And I think it's partially our fault because, again, we kind of want to take the lead on everything. But again, just being able to ask for help and delegate and not like Dana, she could have easily just jumped in and said, I'll just cook it. It's easier to do that. But instead, she helped her child along the way. And at the same time, her child learned something new and probably felt fantastic that they were able to cook that meal that was so delicious.
It was good.
Awesome. Great tips. So do you have any final words of wisdom to our busy moms out there about, keeping healthy with rest and just being their best with better rest?
Yeah. Do you mind if I talk a little bit about the spiritual aspects of rest?
Shoot.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
So I think that one thing that we don't realize is our culture teaches us that we are working for the weekend. And I believe that that is actually the opposite of how God created it. I have a friend she's Jewish, and she taught me that God's creation of the world, where it's night and day, is significant because rest came first and then productivity came after that. It's kind of like a seed in the ground starts in the darkness and then it flourishes. And I think that that's very interesting concept. 4 years ago, I got to go on a trip, the trip of a lifetime, with my mom to Israel. Now she knows that country very well, and she took me to all these really neat places. But one of the things that I experienced there was Sabbath. And it's a very different culture because everything shuts down. Nobody's doing anything. All the stores closed. We stayed on this very busy street, and it was a ghost town from sundown on Saturday or sundown on Friday to sundown on Saturday. Sorry, I said that wrong. And I learned from that just this really interesting thing about letting go of carrying the load and realizing that we could lay it down for a while because God is in control. And so taking that Saturday off for me is a reminder to me that I don't have to carry it all the time, that the God who is I am can hold it for me. And so it's a weekly reminder of that I don't have to carry all this load by myself, that God can do it. And it's so good for us. I mean, we've talked this whole conversation about how good rest is for us. There are entrepreneurs who talk about creativity and how creativity comes from rest. You know, those places where you relax the most, like the shower or on a walk or something like that. Those are where my best ideas come. And so creating that space and making sure that you have that for yourself makes you more able to pour out whatever it is that you're putting into the world, whatever it is that you're leading your family in, and just recognizing that, you know, that God is the source. Like I said, like things start in dark, they start in quiet, and then they come alive during the day. And so the Jewish calendar, actually, a day starts at sundown and goes to sundown the next day. And there's something about just kind of letting go of our day at the beginning and resting, and then going into the part that we actually participate in. And so I think there's some really interesting things in there that, because of our culture, we don't necessarily know or really can even understand at the deep level that they understood it when they read it in scripture. Sorry, I'm getting caught up on my words because it's just a different way of looking at things.
Yeah, and that's so true. I think that those are such good tips, because it is true. I think, again, our culture, I told Dana I was born in South America, and we had, that like siesta time. And I mean, stores closed down. Nobody's out. It could be the busiest day, but nobody's out during that time. And, as far as our culture, we've gotten used to, we want it now. Everything's right now. I saw the other day, there was like a pitch online for a pizza making machine. So you literally go up to this machine and you like punch in what you want, and it like does your pizza. So it's literally less than probably 3 to 5 minutes. And, you just think to yourself, but what about a nice hot, like handmade pizza, And I think a lot of times we sacrifice some good things and some quality, like quality of life, because you're in the hustle and bustle. And yeah, I mean, even on the seventh day, God rested, and he even commands us that we should take a day off. And as we've talked about in the program today, for multiple reasons, health reasons for relationships, reasons, just for ourselves. So awesome. I love it. So I hope you guys enjoyed the show today. I hope you will take all of these tips and implement them so you can be your best with better rest, because it will make you a better mama. It will make you a better entrepreneur. It will make you a better worker. It will just make you a better individual. And it will also just make you feel better overall. So you got some great tips today from Dana. And Dana, I just want you to tell you how everybody can connect and when your show is on.
Yeah, definitely. So I love to connect on Instagram. I'm on other places, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, as the table 112. That's the number 112. But Instagram is probably the best place to find me because I spend most of my time hanging out there. In fact, every day at 112 Central, we do a live stream. So you can jump in and we can have a conversation. It's just sort of whatever's on my mind about parenting for the day. I also host a show called Lively Conversations. It's a podcast that I began with my husband and my 2 teenagers. And I just wanted to spark meaningful talks between parents and teenagers. One of the things that parents of teens complain about the most is the grunt and the one-word answers that we tend to get. And I realized that if we can normalize conversations and make it a habit where we talk to our kids and we kind of discover like what are they actually thinking about things, even if they don't agree with us, that it makes those harder conversations so much easier to have because you've practiced having conversations. And so we practice having conversations every single week. It started out with my family. And then in January this year, I started interviewing other parents and teenagers and just try to find interesting stories of kids who are doing something cool or have overcome a challenge. And then one of my favorite things about the show is hearing back from the parents afterwards. And they're like, I had no idea my son or daughter thought that. I'm so glad that we did this because I would not have heard them articulate how much they liked this thing that we did with them or something like that. So yeah, it's been really rewarding and fun to do. And that comes out Thursday mornings. You can find it anywhere you listen to podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all those things, or you can find it on my website at table112.org/podcast.
So definitely make sure to check her out. Definitely make sure to follow her on Instagram again at the table 112. The number, that information's below. And then below I'll have all her contact information, also the time that her podcast and the table 112 talk comes on. There's a lot of T's in there. Table. So of course it's been a pleasure. Don't forget to subscribe to the Dr. Mom Show channel. Hit the notification button so you know when we're coming on, so you don't miss a program. Again, this season we are focusing on our mamas and what's best for our mamas and tips to being a more successful and a happier mama. And then don't forget to comment if there's any topic that you want me to cover or talk about. Feel free to post that in the comments, or you can also shoot an email to drmomshow@gmail.com. And then, of course, don't forget to wash your hands, kiss your kids, love your family, and say your prayers. Good night. Love you guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.